Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. All things Middle Earth here with a quick video guide for you on how to take 300 power tiles. We're going to take one really quick here in the video. And I want to talk about for a second, right before we do that, why I think everyone should be doing this as soon as they can. So something that I think should be pretty common knowledge, but again, if you're brand new to the game, you wouldn't know this unless you've played or been around in the community. But for things like mock battling and things like gathering you can do at different lands. If you click on them, you go to mock battle or gather, you get more XP or more resources the higher the higher the land is. So for a 200, for example, here I've got 200 right here. If I put Dwalin in just for 10 minutes, it's 30,000 experience. I do have one 300 we took on stream the other day. So 30,000 for a 200 compared to 50,000 for a 300. So there's a pretty significant jump from 2 to 300. And the reason you want to do that is because A, you really need to be focusing on like 2 to 4 commanders and getting them as high as possible, ideally to level 50, the max level, as soon as possible, so they can be the most beneficial in helping out your faction, your fellowships, all that stuff. And also, if you get a new character, so I pulled Denethor, for example, I'm not going to be leveling him up right away, but maybe you're starting out and you just got a really good character and you don't have that great of commanders, you can get that level 1 commander from level 1 up to like the 40s very, very, very quickly. It's going to be insane how fast you can get them leveled up. So whether it's just taking your kind of mid-tier, 30-something, 40-something troops the rest of the way, or it's a new commander that you got that you really want to use. Maybe you pulled a tier 3 and you're really excited about it. Again, if I pulled a tier 3, I probably would give that commander priority just because it'd be really cool. But there is huge advantages to you for mock battling and for gathering. So the other thing noted about that is you're going to want to look at your ring abilities. So if you're doing mock battling, I suggest going into these 4 here. Rationing is not as important if you can't afford that, but efficiency and yield make it cost less stamina. You get more XP, and then this experience one just gives you even more XP on top of that. So those 3 are very important. I would honestly say efficiency is the best one. So if you had to do one, go into efficiency. Next thing, I would always suggest doing control first, so you get more ability points. They regen faster. If you didn't know, when you max out control, it makes your ability points regen faster. When you start out the game, you have a cap of 20 ability points, and they regen about every 1 hour and 12 minutes. You get one more. When you max this out, your cap goes to 30, and the regen time goes down to 48 minutes. So it's a huge difference in that. So I would always suggest maxing this out, and then stamina is great as well because the stamina regens pretty fast as well. So especially if you just you get up for the first time in the morning, you get on, you're going to have 150 maxed out. And so that's what I can do with Dwalin when I get up in the morning. He'll have maxed out, or for anybody, for example, for Faramir, and I can do this 15 or 14 times because I have that many ability points. But you get the idea. If you go into those 2 ring points and then into the bottom right side, you're going to get the most from this. This also works if you have these up here and go into something like Harvest to gather more resources, however you want to use it. But make sure you got your ring points set out how you want them to be. So we've got a 300. We're going to take one more here so we make sure we know what we're doing. So I've pinned one here that's relatively close by, so you just got to find one first. You can use the search function here and pick whatever resource you want to get. I just checked like every resource type because this was the only one that was relatively close to me. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to send my troops next to the area so they're ready to attack. This is depending on where it is. Obviously, if you already have several 50s, you're probably not watching this video if you already have several 50s, or at least like you probably know this stuff. The higher level your troops are, the more you could go in and actually clean this stuff pretty easily. But when I did it, I had Dwalin at 42 and Faramir at 42 as my highest 2 commanders. So I sent everyone to this one spot right here. That way I could see who was there and then best decide what troops to send in. So I'm going to get all my troops I'm going to send 5 or 6 armies just to be safe, and I'll show you exactly how it all ends up playing out. And I want to try and bring as many different counters with my commanders as I can. So I'm going to get my armies loaded up and send them down there, and I'll catch up with you guys in just a moment. All right, so I've got all my commanders marching. I actually sent 6 to march, I believe, which I think is going to be overkill, but it just depends on what level you're at. For me, obviously, since I've taken my first 300, I got Dwalin even higher, so he's going to do even better against the 300 power tile. But when they were both at 42, you're going to go through more troops. But I think the benefit of having the 300, getting more XP or resources gathered, is going to be really, really worth it. So as soon as you can, I would suggest doing this. Basically, as soon as you can, what I mean by that is as soon as you can actually take it, without it resetting in the 15 minutes, and also not wiping out literally every troop you have and sending out all your commanders just full of troops. So let's give them a second to march over there, and we'll take this real time, and I'll show you guys kind of what types of troops you can come up against and some other tips I've got for taking these things out. All right, everyone, we're just finishing up our last march here by Gandalf. Again, I went a little bit overkill, but just so I could clearly show how I think the best way to do this would be. One thing that's going to be important to say is that it's going to be very helpful to have a lot of different troop types to counter different types of troops. For example, in my tier 4 or in my 300 power land I took before, I saw a lot of the tier 4 Ingmar troops, the Fallen, that's the mounted troop there. So a troop like the Spearmen or the Guards of the Tower would be very good because they're anti-cavalry. I don't have them upgraded or a lot of them made right now since I've switched to Erebor kind of recently. So I'm kind of just working with what I have. But again, in theory, you would have some anti-cavalry type troops. You'd have some anti-large unit troops like the axe throwers, stuff like that. So I don't have like amazing counters here, but definitely be thoughtful about who you're sending in based on what counters you have out there. So first thing I'm going to do, and this is not necessary, I'm just doing it because I have the time right now, but I'm going to send in, I brought Theoden here with like total intention of him dying just to see who's here first. Obviously, like I said, I don't have a lot of different troop counters with me at this very moment, so a lot of the armies you're going to see here have very similar compositions with the tier 4 dwarven units and the axe throwers. Eowyn has the tier 3 cavalry with her, those are upgraded all the way. Eomer has some of the ram riders and the tier 3 cavalry. Dwalin has axe throwers and the tier 4 dwarven unit and some of the ram riders. So that's kind of what everyone looks like. So I don't have any spearmen with me or things that counter certain types. So sending in a unit like this isn't really going to give me too much of an advantage, but I just want to show that that's something you can do. So Theoden's here first. We can see that we have the Snagathrak here as well as the mountain trolls. That's actually pretty good news for us because our axe throwers counter the mountain trolls very, very well. So we're going to send in Dwalin first to see how he does here. Again, you have 15 minutes once you make your first hit, so you want to make sure. This is why I bring everyone right here. That way I can just send them in without having to worry too much. The more and more powerful you get, obviously, you can just start sending 2 or 3 armies at one time and take these out. But if this is your first one, you're probably going to be using quite a few armies. So we're going to send Dwalin in and see what he does in just a second. All right, Dwalin has taken the first hit, so we're going to see how that goes. He'll probably more than likely hit a draw. He did, so we can look at that. As you can see, he almost got completely defeated. We took out about half, almost half the HP of this army. Still some of both troop types remaining, but all we have left is 672 of the axe throwers. So now I'm going to send in my next army. I'll send in Faramir. He's got some more axe throwers, quite a bit of them, so that will definitely, hopefully, finish off the trolls and possibly the rest of the Snagathrak there. I am then going to recall Dwalin. This will send him back to the square I had them at before. This is not 100% necessary, but if your armies get knocked down to only having 672 troops, this is going to get destroyed by this if I let the draw resolve. So something you can do is pull your troops back and then reinforce and send them back in. So maybe if you only have like 2 or 3 really high level commanders, you can just rotate with them. I brought a lot more troop types, so I can do it with those if I want to. But I can send Dwalin back here, and you can speed this up if you want to. It's not necessary. I definitely have the time. And then I can recall him out here and get all those troop types back with him. That's only going to take 2 minutes, which is gives me plenty of time. So again, I'm letting my best or highest level commander do the most work. That way I save the most troop types since he's coming with the most armies. But it's not necessary. If you want to let your draws resolve, you can. But it resolves and continues with what you have left. So if you get almost wiped out, then you're just going to lose all the rest of your troops. So let's see what Faramir does here. He might be able to finish this one off. Let's see. He did not quite. So the trolls are dead. We just have 174 of the tier 4 Isengard unit, the Snagathrak. And Faramir's not looking too bad, but we are going to go ahead and recall him as well. I'm not sure if I'll use him again. But as soon as Dwalin gets his army in here, we're going to send him in. We'll still have plenty of time to then look at the final army and see what we want to do there. All right, so Dwalin is getting reinforced here, so we're about to send him back in. Again, reinforcing is helpful if you have less commanders. So if I only had one commander that was really high level or high enough to even do anything to a 300 power land, it could be worth it if it's close enough to my base to just send him in, let him take the hit, recall him, reinforce, and then send him back in over and over like that. Obviously, the further away things are, if there are things that are really far away from my base, I may not have time to do that, and so that's where you would use a lot of the extra troops you bring in there. So it's totally dependent on where your troop types are, dependent on how much stamina you have. Obviously, I use stamina just to march them over here, so that's a decision that I made to more easily make sure I can do this right next to it. But if you are getting comfortable with this, you can just send 3 or 4 armies at one time, and not worry about lining them up to hit at the same time like I did here. So we sent Dwalin in. He's going to definitely clean up this, and then we'll see what's next. Again, I don't have a lot of different troop types here, so at this point, I'm just going to send in Eowyn. I'm going to wait a second so Dwalin hits first because he is a little bit more tanky, but as soon as his time gets below how long it would take her to march, I'm going to send her in, and then we'll probably need one more hit to finish it off. All right, and Dwalin is just now hitting, so he's going to finish off that first army, and then Eowyn's going to hit. So as you can see, Dwalin hit here, finish that one off, starts the second one. It is actually all trolls, which is actually very, very good for us. This is a lot easier than the first one I did. Eowyn does an okay job, but honestly, the cavalry are not going to be best for that. The army that Dwalin had was very, very good for that. So we're going to go ahead and get them both out of here. And looking at this, you can see maybe about 2/3 of the army left. So we'll see how many more hits it takes. But let's see here. Legolas does have a lot of the axe throwers, so we're going to send him in. And we'll send Gandalf in as a backup. I think they'll be able to finish it off together, but we'll obviously see. We have 7 minutes left. They're going to take about a minute to march, so if we need to send one more in, we can. But again, you get the general idea of how you can do that. If I have more troop types here, like if I had an army like full of spearmen and they happen to have a lot of mounted type troops, I would send them in instead. Or in this instance, I'm going to send all anti-troll type units. Maybe if they had ranged units, I could send in the rangers or something that do more damage against ranged type units. It just depends on what your options are. But even if you only have like your faction specific troop types, like I have my tier 4 and my tier 3 ranged unit and then my tier 3 mounted. For the most part, that's all I have, and that's going to work just fine here. All right, and Legolas is hitting now. He got the hit in before Gandalf, so he'll probably soften it up a bit, hopefully for Gandalf to finish it. Again, if we need to do another one, we can. Took it about half, so not as much as we would have liked. Again, the level differences here are quite a bit, so it does look like Gandalf finished it off. So again, Legolas able to soften it up here, take it about to half strength or so, and then Gandalf coming in with a lot of the axe throwers again, who do extra damage to large units and also extra damage to melee units, and he finishes it off. So again, that is how you take a 300 power tile in the Lord of the Rings The Rise to War. Obviously, if I could put together the perfect scenario, location is very important on this, but I would just suggest having lots of different troop types to counter the different things. In my first battle, I had a ton of the tier 4 Angmar mounted troops, and so it took a little bit more to get this taken care of. And this one, I had trolls in every single one, which is like the one unit I counter the best. So this one worked out really well for me. It may not for you. Also, if you, depending on what troops you have, you could send in a scout, and if it's an army that you have like no counters for, just let it reset and let a new army get in there, or try a different one and see if you can get a better first army. But at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to see the second until you get through the first, so you might have to go through an army you don't counter super well. But that's how you do it. Obviously, very important to get more resources from gathering, also just more resources in general from your resource production. And the mock battling is the really, really important thing. So you can get those commanders leveled up as much as they can, so you can go out and participate more in what's happening in your server with your faction and your fellowship or warband. But that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found some of this information helpful. If you have some more tips or tricks for taking high power tiles, leave those down below so we can keep refining our strategies here so everyone can learn and do better. Like I said earlier, I stream over on Twitch, so if you want to check that out, the link is in the description below. And on Twitch, we hang out and we try stuff like this, where we take our first, we took our first 200 and 300 on Twitch, getting advice from people in chat. So if you have advice to give or just want to come watch and get advice and learn about the game, then you should definitely check that out. But that's going to do it for me today, and I'll see you all in the next video.